Good morning. I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards, or over on Twitter known as @Risk for Rewards. Currently got around just over 20,000 followers over there, and about 1,700 here on YouTube. If you're not following and you want to, obviously that's my Twitter handle. And if you'd like to subscribe to these videos, if you click the link at the bottom, then it just means you get the video as soon as it goes live. Especially with this week for obviously with Ascot, the videos are going live straight away, and you won't see them otherwise because people aren't checking in until the next day. And if there are market moves, then you'll miss them, unfortunately. But at the same time, it's not been too bothered this week anyway due to some of the results. I am going to be doing obviously a lot more content going forwards, and everyone who follows me, well, not everyone, but the majority of people follow me, it's mainly because they're following for National Hunt and Cheltenham Festival. So if you're not already following on here on YouTube, then obviously you can subscribe. Any likes, much appreciated as always, and any feedback appreciated, positive or negative. Always looking to improve, so anything is a bonus. If you're looking to just go straight through, this is Royal Ascot Friday. If you're looking just for the straight into the Friday content, I have time stamped along the bottom so you can just skip straight through to there. But I'm just going to do a quick recap of the first 2 days just to put a few things into perspective. So first thing I just want to talk about is, I know everyone compares Cheltenham Festival to Royal Ascot. On the levels and the spectrums of the enjoyment and everything, 100% agree. But they are so different. People everyone's complaining. I'm talking, this video is on day 3 morning, so Thursday morning. People are complaining to the high heavens, bring back Cheltenham, where's Cheltenham stuff. They're not the same, guys and girls. They're just not. Like, I could sit and watch, obviously everyone knows how much I love the jumps. I love to have a bet on the Cheltenham Festival, but I could sit and watch all of Royal Ascot without having a bet. And the main thing with that is the fact that it is so competitive. And I said this on the day 1 video, and the fact that you'll have 8 runners in, say, a Group 1. You'll have that on the National Hunt, say it's I don't know, the Betfair Chase, and there's 2 really that you think it is between these 2. And between those 2, normally at 9 out of 10 times, that will be how it ends up. And you can write off, say, 1 or 2 straight away. Whereas on these Group 1s on the flat, you can think, oh, it's between, say, 4 horses, and write the rest off. But these horses in the background, they still come back and win. And prime example was yesterday with Mushtadaf. Like, I can hold my hands up. I sat here on this video, and I said it was a 4-horse race. And the reason I said it was a 4-horse race wasn't because I didn't think Mushtadaf had the ability to win the race. It was because, how can I predict Mushtadaf coming back for his first run after 4 months, after finishing, I think it was 4th to Equinox in March? Obviously the travelling, the time, where's the horse at? And people say, yeah, he's got the form in the book. And there's loads of people obviously afterwards saying, oh yeah, that was obvious and stuff. And you can see it now, of course you can see it. But you're completely guessing on that horse's form, that horse's fitness going into that race. How are you to know that John Gosden has got that horse ready for a Group 1 to peak? And it wasn't as if he was running against Yokes and he was just a back number. These were other Group 1 horses. Obviously, Luxembourg had won a Group 1 last time out. Bay Bridge won a Group 1 last year. Adiyar won the Derby. These are all very good horses, and you all knew that they were going there 100 to 110% before the day. Whereas Mushtadaf had the form in the book and stuff to be competitive at that level, but the fitness was not guaranteed. That's why he was the price he was. That's why he was overlooked. It wasn't that people couldn't see it and stuff. I saw so many people giving the old shrewd tweets afterwards. And if you backed him, that's brilliant. But in my opinion, you were backing him almost, unless you knew something or you'd read something from John Gosden saying, like, I know people were saying even last night, oh, Jim Crowley was very bullish on his block. He's going to be bullish on his block. He's riding the horse. So, but until you know, like, I can imagine if you asked John Gosden beforehand, he's not going to say, yeah, we've got him ripe and ready to go. Maybe he was at 90% anyway, and he's just come on leaps and bounds over the course of the last year. But all I'm saying is, like, a prime example, flipping it the other direction, would be look at Grand Dame. So Grand Dame went from 14 to 1 to 9 to 1 with declarations. Declarations came out, Laurel wasn't in. Grand Dame then went from 9 to 1 all the way through to about, I think it was joint favourite 100 to 30. So the difference was there is, again, Grand Dame, you didn't know the fitness, but you had a market move. So Grand Dame would have made sense to run a big race, whereas Mushtadaf, you had the opposite. You had no market move, but ran an absolute monstrous performance. Well, I say no market move, it was back late on, but it's still in the double figures. It wasn't like that. That's to go 14 to 1 into 100 to 30 joint favourite in a race just between pre-decks and then post-decks. That's a monumental move. And obviously Grand Dame clearly needed it because ran absolutely no race. So I wouldn't say that horse is now written off the season. It's just the fact that whether it was fitness or wasn't ready or didn't have, like, you could make loads of reasons for it. But my point is, and then obviously the Shrewdies come out as well with the Prince of Wales Stakes, and they're like, oh yeah, not going obviously with the form. But the other thing was, oh, if you'd been watching on the exchanges, you'd have seen the drift on Luxembourg, and you would have known as well. Well, I'm not being funny. Did anyone see that really happening with Mustardaf? Because as far as I can see, is yeah, Luxembourg may have been softened slightly with the American frontrunner, but looking at the result, looking at the way the race played out, I literally see nothing wrong with that result. Bar if you took Mustardaf out of that race, then that's exactly how most punters would have seen it. Luxembourg to beat Tahiyra. So I don't think you could suddenly think, unless you knew that suddenly in the last 5 minutes before the race that Mustardaf was going to have an absolute monstrous performance and beat a host of Group 1 winners off a 4-month layoff, having finished fourth over in Maidan. I don't see how you saw that coming. So like, it's just, guys, you've got to take, and girls, you've got to take everything with a pinch of salt. There's a lot of people who say these comments on Twitter. I mean, I put a tweet up saying, oh, if anyone's had a winner, I take my hat off. And there's always like people like with their little comments, they're like, oh yeah, well, when it's obvious, you're like, they're just feeding it to the punters, as if like, oh, well, okay, maybe I won't bet on Group 1 horses because you don't stand a chance. It's just ridiculous, some of the comments you see. That's why the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to just take a breather, go for a walk, not worry about it. If you lose money, you are going to lose money at times. Do you know who the people who lose the most money? The people who lose the most money, as in the people who have got the biggest bet on, they'll be the ones that are quietest in the room. Or they should be the ones quietest in the room. The reason for that is because they knew all the risks. That's why they're putting the proper money on. They do this properly. They make their money properly. So for the likes of, like, say, like the Coolmore Silks, say with the River Tiber early in the week, they had their money down. They knew what they had. And if that horse had lost, they would have assessed every angle that they could have, the form, the draw, the analysis. Why? Because they're putting the big money down. You don't want to be the person putting the massive money on. The people who are moaning and complaining on Twitter and stuff, they could have any amount of money on it. They could have £1 on it. They could have £100,000 on it. You just don't know. All I'm saying is just have a breather. At the end of the day, we're 2 days in. There is 5 days. You could finish this meeting with 0 winners at the end of the week, to be honest. And I would not be surprised. And the other big thing as well is everyone going back to the Cheltenham Festival form. Cheltenham is nothing like Royal Ascot. Cheltenham is 6 months of hard substance and form. The only horses that have had 2 or 3 runs are the novices. Everything else, you've got years of form. So the shocks will be there, but it's just not to this level. Like today, Twitter is going to go absolutely nuts if Elite Status doesn't win. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ala Sifa isn't far behind if that doesn't win. Ala Sifa and Elite Status have both had 2 runs in their life. So whilst I stand here, and obviously I put in my video yesterday, very good, strong selections for both of them, and I am on both of them. I'm bigger prices on Elite Status, but I've also gone in at 7-4, and I do really like both those selections. But would I be shocked? No. Whereas you come to like a champion hurdle in March, and you've been backing a horse for 3 months, like a Forheen or something. You know what he's going to do. You know how many he's had, say 10 runs. He's run on all sorts of ground. He's run at Cheltenham before. He's beaten the horse in the race before, and all sorts of things. You just need to get it out of your head. They are not the same thing. These mentions straight after, bring back the jump, bring back that. Like, just enjoy the flat for what it is. If you need to lower your stakes, lower your stakes. Like I said yesterday looked tricky. Say you were, I don't know, say you were a £70 a race punter normally. Why not split your £10 a race over 7 races yesterday? You don't have to go blow the doors off every race. You don't have to bet every race. I just think people get too hung up and too animated and too flipping down on the flat season. The flat season is enjoyable, but as I've said so many times before, it's there so that you can sit outside with your mates at Royal Ascot, have a few beers, enjoy it, pick up a few winners, yeah, hopefully. So it is what it is. Anyway, rant over. Let's get down to some actual useful things. So I'm just going to quickly go through yesterday. So Crimson Advocate obviously doing Relief Rally. That was awful for everyone on Relief Rally. I do feel for you because you were in front and then behind. Me personally, when I watched that go past the line, the first thing I thought of, why are these Americans not using Frankie Dettori? I know obviously normally it was just Wesley Ward and that was George Weaver and they like to use their own, but if you put Frankie Dettori on these sort of rides and stuff, he knows the course inside out and he's going to get the result more often than not. And I just think, a bit like the Black Caviar situation, I just think that quite often they play cards they don't need to, in the fact that they made that harder than it was. I know he got by a nose, so everything was perfect. But if he hadn't, the question would have been, well, was it that great a ride? And I'm not saying that it was a bad ride. Obviously, I'm not a jockey. I don't know. But me personally, if you put Frankie Dettori on that horse, he would have held the horse to where he needed to be and stuff. I know it's very difficult because obviously those jockeys work with those horses in America. Just a personal opinion. It's not anything. Going on to the Palace Phillies Stakes, obviously I backed Adelaide and Johan there. It's just a frustrating watch. Like I'm not going to stand here and slate jockeys because that's not what I'm here to do. But I don't understand. You're not going to, whether you're from England, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, you are not going to get room in these races. Get your elbows up and say, this is my space. Find your gaps. Everything's happened in split seconds. Like I said, obviously I'm not a jockey. I do not know how to ride a horse. But you look who wins the race, and that's Colin Keane. And he is obviously the Irish champion, and he is one of those. And do you know why he won the race? Because he gave the horse the best ride. There was other horses like Don't Tell Claire, got chopped up. Adelaide's and Johan there both got chopped up by the winner. Not chopped up as in caused interference, but it was the fact that he was like, right, I'm definitely going this way, this way, this way, this way. And it's so difficult, and it's just a difficult watch, but it's just one of those where these fields, you're going to get nothing. So it's just, in my opinion, it's just you probably want to choose the jockeys that you know are going to be able to achieve these things. On to Rogue Millennium beating Random Harvest. I said Random Harvest at 33-1 on here. Didn't back it at all myself because I couldn't see past Jumbie and Grand Dame, especially when the money came as well. Rogue Millennium obviously dropped back 2 furlongs, gets the job done. The only thing I got out of that really was it was a form boost for Free Wind on Saturday because Free Wind beat the Rogue Millennium last time out. Moshadaf I've already mentioned. Gregory, great to see Frankie get on the board. I mean, it was a great ride in the end, but I mean, I don't know if he just had plenty of horse because that was I don't know whether it was a brave, like it looked a great ride because he got the result. But I mean, they must have used some serious petrol bouncing out, firing across that quickly across. And to be honest, he started trading at 1.8, 1.6 on the exchange, and I thought there'd be people that would be laying that to the high heavens because he used a lot of petrol getting across, and it's a field littered with depth. And I think some of these will be good in behind. But at the end of the day, he gave it a brilliant ride, and there's nothing to knock about it. I just feared for him when I think Frankie's head is too concerned with getting these winners. Like he's not thinking like race by race, like his normal cool, calm and composed. Like I'm on, say like if he was in Ryan Moore's position, he's got 3 winners on the board and it's just like, yeah, I'll just take them easy. Like he rode that scarily like he stole it. It was literally like, this is like a do or die ride. And then Big F's, who's picking that in the Windsor Castle? I'll tell you who is, some people on course because it got absolutely smashed in the betting late on. And the rumour was that there was quite a good word going around for it, but if you told me a Michael Appleby horse passed the line winning the Windsor Castle, I'd have said, flip now, 50-1 was it? Like, no, 20-1. Just wouldn't have seen that coming. Beaten and obviously an Aidan O'Brien horse as well in the second. So anyway, we move on. Me personally, I just think over the first few 2 days, I think a lot of people will be not way behind, but would have struggled for a couple of winners. I think most people had Vauban on the first day. I think plenty would have had River Tiber or Sadner would have been their choices. That would have been the split. And the same with Paddington or Caldine. Those would have been the split. Yesterday, winners looked hard to come by. There wasn't many. You didn't see many booms on Twitter. You don't see many columns on the racing anywhere saying, yeah, that was a good pick. Bar obviously Gregory, but that's even money. And if you're betting over 7 races, unless you're absolutely just tonking on one race. Anyway, we're not here to talk about all that. This is Thursday morning, so obviously my selections for Thursday haven't won yet. I do this in the mornings, so you've got zero emotion attached to it. Not emotion that would affect my decisions, it's just emotion in the fact that I'm going to be tired throughout the day because it's the evening. So we are going to go on to Friday. I do really like Friday as a card. I will probably, despite obviously I've curbed it a bit today, I've only got 3 races covered, but tomorrow I'll probably end up with a full host of 7 selections. I'm only going to give obviously general thoughts on a few of these races because I haven't narrowed it down yet. I don't want to say definitely, but some of them I have already backed horsing. So 2:30 we've got the Albany fillies, 6 furlongs. As we've seen with a few of the fillies races, they can be unpredictable. Most of these, nearly all of these are coming in with just a 1 next to their name, or some have got 2 1s. And that's what puts me off towards the front end of the market. Like Carla's Way was very, very impressive in getting the victory. And the horse she beat in second, Star of Mystery, came out and hacked up by about 27 lengths. Well, that's exaggerated. It was about 10 lengths. But the problem is, because of that form and the recency bias, that horse has gone from 8-1 into 7-2. And I think people, if you've got the bigger prices, like it was 20 to 1 after the race, and if you've got those sort of prices, you're laughing. But I find it hard. I'm not saying I won't back it yet, but I just find it a little bit hard in the fact that she was very, very keen throughout that race. She stayed on very powerfully, but if she's that keen in the race here in the Albany, they're not going to be so forgiving at all. And also the horse in second, as I said, with all 2-year-olds, they can improve like 10, 20 pounds. Right, and then obviously I'm not going to run through all of these. My shortlist at the moment, obviously Carla's Way's interesting, Soprano. I'm not sure on Jabari yet. An interesting one that I really liked was Navassa Island, when it was about 12 to 1, but it was only priced up with one bet firm. I think it was Unibet, and I couldn't get that price, so I was waiting, and then it was 8s and then 6s, and it'll be a lot of these markets. Like if you look at the 2-year-old markets today for the Norfolk, you've got 6 to 4, and then the rest of the field are drifting. So I think that will be very similar tomorrow. This looks a competitive race, and you start getting towards bigger figures. And Navassa Island was finishing like an absolute train behind Porta Fortuna, and I think both of those two are very interesting. Obviously, O'Brien's sent Metrika there, who is supposedly going to go to the Chesham, but comes here instead. So all in all, I don't really know 100% at the moment what I'm going to be doing in that. What I'm definitely going to be doing in the next race is I've backed Little Big Bear at 9 to 1 to win the race at Haydock on his comeback, second comeback. What was it? Is it Sandy Lane? Just double check that for you. I don't want to give you rubbish knowledge. Yeah, Sandy Lane. So he won the Sandy Lane. I backed him to win that and then to win here, and that was 9 to 1. So I'm happy with that. I mean, currently probably I reckon again you might end up, depending on how it goes today, whether there's winners or not. I think that could probably be maybe anywhere from evens to 6 to 4. But I think come the race day, that's going off odds on. Everyone saw how impressive he was last year in the Windsor Castle, and that was the one for Coolmore. Aidan O'Brien had made no bones about the fact that that was their number one. Massive flop in the 2000 Guineas, but as we know, with him and August Rodin, it wasn't the end of the world. And I think the bigger race was the Haydock race, and I said that at the time. I think you needed to see him back on track, and yet he was subject to a massive pace bias, a massive draw bias, and he had the Golden Highway, much like Dramatised did. But at the end of the day, it was all about seeing that he still held that sprinting capabilities. And I think that getting him to there and getting him that run into him, that was important for O'Brien on a stepping stone sort of things. Like to say he was at 90-95%. It was important to get that run in and get the tick in the box. Whereas I think with Royal Ascot, there will be zero excuses. He's going to get that fast ground. He's drawn in 2, which obviously we could have a draw bias. Like we've seen, it's gone all over the place at the moment. This is what happens when you water. But the bonus that he's got is he's got Shaquille next door. And as we saw when Shaquille beat Noble Star, Shaquille is going to come out and just go off like a scolded cat. Switches, Oisin Murphy rides Shaquille now because James Doyle was switched. But they're still going to... Apologies. Still going to go off in the exact same manner. So Shaquille is going to bounce out from 4 and obviously go to make up. Shaquille, I think, is to be respected, but Little Big Bear's looked a monster so far on all his 2-year-old form, one flop in his life, and I'd expect him to get the perfect toe from Shaquille under Ryan Moore. And as long as he doesn't get boxed in on the rail, obviously he's going to have the option to go. I don't need to tell you what Ryan Moore's going to do. He's the master. And I see very little excuses for him. So anything above even money I think is fair. I know obviously I've got the bigger price, but I'm here to obviously tell people who haven't got any prices. So I think if you can get the 6 to 4, whatever it is at the moment, I think that's fair. Sakir is very interesting. Like obviously he's the logical saver, especially with Roger Berrien having a good week, had a couple of winners on day 1, and it does make sense. But at the same time, I look at it through his form. I know he beat Rousing, Encore and Charin, and he did beat Should Have Been a Ring and stuff over 6 furlongs in a Grade 2 last year. But apart from that, we've not seen him since 2000 Guineas, and he ran a great race for something like this for the Commonwealth. And he does make sense. And maybe if you've got Little Big Bear at like 9 or 10 to 1, then Sakir is a perfect cover for a race such as this, because he's the one where, if you said to me a horse blew this to bits and it wasn't Little Big Bear, I could see Sakir doing that. But at the same time, he's 4 to 1. Again, you might want to wait for your prices because I think some of these will drift. Again, he's 4 or 5 to 1, and Little Big Bear would be my preference at the short end. Of the big end, I think Shaquille is underrated at his price. So I do think it's a big price considering he's just got a host of ones at his name. I know it was like York, Wolverhampton, Newmarket, but last time he did stamp it on the race. Unfortunately, though, I already have 2 selections in this because I put up Noble Star Anti-Post. So he will be my other selection, and I'm only going to play him and Little Big Bear. Little Big Bear would obviously be my main selection. Noble Star, I know a lot of people have completely lost it with him. And now you look back, his 2-year-old form was one of the best. In behind Little Big Bear, his 2-year-old form was phenomenal. Arguably, you could say he wasn't far behind Little Big Bear at all. And obviously the beating of Marshman in, was it the Clipper? No, the Gym Crack. So he beat Marshman, Cold Case, Chateau. Royal Scotsman was beaten 8 lengths in that race. And we've seen what Royal Scotsman's done since. So obviously not recently, but before that. All of that, the form to that is rock solid substance form. The issue is he ran an absolutely brilliant race in the 2000 Guineas, very, very similar to Sakir. And I think, if anything, they sent him there underfit, expecting him not to handle the ground and for him not to go as well as he did. And he obviously just tried harder. And I think he paid the consequences. He was turned out 14 days later and he was beaten. He was only beaten 3 lengths by Shaquille, but he wasn't given a great ride that day. He fell out the stalls, he was held up out the back, and they just didn't come back to him. And it was all over a mess and sort of thing. But I just looked at that and thought that's a piece of work at the end of the day rather than a thing. They spoke about stepping up to 7 furlongs, which would make sense because he did look like he needed time to get himself together. But I mean, 6 furlongs, fast ground, Ascot, stamina sapping track towards the end. Like, I think this is properly tailor made for him. And obviously he's 1/5 here when he beat Wallbank. And I do think it's tailor made for him, and I would not be surprised if he runs a big race. He's got first time cheek pieces. Obviously the negative is always going to be that William Buick's had enough of riding him and he's swapped and he's gone to Mischief Magic, who's a much bigger price than Noble Star. So James Doyle takes the ride and he gets cheek pieces, but James Doyle rode him in the Guineas. Obviously he was beat that day, but I don't see that as a negative in the slightest. So for me, as much as obviously Noble Star was one of those get it back out of the bin because you thought he's been poor and he's going to go to the Jersey, at least I've got a runner in the race who if I was just on Little Big Bear, I would see him as an outsider danger. And it wouldn't be surprised to me if he drifted out to like 16, 20 to 1. So obviously in short, I think Little Big Bear will take the beating. If it wasn't him, an electric performance may come from Sakir, but I don't want to cover on a price that's as short as that. So I'm happy with Little Big Bear. And then obviously from the outsiders, double figures. Shakir was to be respected, but it's Noble Star for me. First time cheap pieces, but you are obviously guessing. Right, on to the Duke of Edinburgh Stakes. So I'm not going to go into this. All I'm going to say is there's a lot of heavy draw biases for these races. And one for the Duke of Edinburgh Stakes is high draws. So you're not talking just like as in slightly high, as in very high. Like basically draw 10 is okay, not phenomenal. And the problem I've got is like anyone who followed at Epsom knows in Max Mayhem, and he's one that I may still end up backing him anyway because he's 25s at the moment. He might end up 33s or even 40s, but he's been drawn 5. And so like a good record for this race, some good statistics is horses that have finished, obviously I haven't got any notes here, so this is just what I've read. Horses that have finished first last time out and are in the top half of the draw. And of that, in reality, like you're looking at horses, you've got HMS President, Al Nafir and Omniscient. Omniscient's a reserve at the moment, so isn't even guaranteed. So you've got Al Nafir and HMS President currently. Live Your Dreams, probably interesting for Daniel Tudhope. But I'm not going to waste too much time on this. All I'll say is if you are looking for your selection, I will have probably, if I do selections, they'll be up tomorrow. And it's high draws in the Duke of Edinburgh Stakes. So on to Coronation Stakes. I've mentioned this before. I mentioned this in the first video. I mentioned this in the Ascot preview video. I mentioned it, I don't know what price it was, maybe 5 to 4. I backed Tahiyra at 6 to 4. I thought she'll avenge Morge. I thought she's very, very impressive over in Ireland. I was happy when I backed Morge in the 1000 Guineas that she won, but I thought that Tahiyra clearly was a moving forward project. I do think she enjoys a bit more of a cut in the ground, but at the same time they're watering every day, so we've still had soft in the title for a lot of these for a lot of the racing, which you shouldn't really have this time of year. And also the difference is with Tahiyra is I think Dermot Weld was really worried about racing her on the faster ground at the start of the season, but once you've been on it, it is what it is. You've already done it, so what's the issue? And it was good ground and it was fast ground over at the Curragh. Again, and I go back to the pace bias. Obviously, Luxembourg and Paddington both proved that it wasn't just a pace bias because they both ran great races. In the fact that Tahiyra wasn't, she was kept in behind like 2 or 3 deep. My concern for Tahiyra is that I think Chris Hayes has got enormous amounts of confidence in this horse, and you saw the stones of steel when he beat Meditate first time out at the Curragh last year. He literally rode her like he was riding Frankel, absolutely zero issue, and he just thought that there's no way I'm getting beat on this. Obviously with Morge it was slightly different because I think they knew that there was a little bit left in the tank, but when they faced Meditate again at the Curragh, he did the exact same again. And Ballydoyle had a pacemaker and was trying to keep him in, but the pacemaker just wasn't good enough to keep up with the pace that Meditate was setting. So Meditate was in front, pacemaker here, Tahiyra in there against the rail. So if the pacemaker was better, obviously Ryan Moore was keeping the gap here. If the pacemaker was better, then it would have just stopped Tahiyra getting out. And I just don't want to see that overconfidence here brought out on Friday. At the same time, she does look a class above. She's now, I think she's 3. Is it 3 for 3? Tahiyra. No. So she's Meditate's finished behind Tahiyra 3 times now. But if you go by what everyone else says at Royal Ascot, then with all the results, it would be no surprise to see Meditate turn it around. Jokes aside, I would not be surprised to see Meditate turn it around just because Aidan O'Brien is phenomenal with fillies and mares. In fact, I would be surprised, but if there was any horse in here that did turn it round, I wouldn't be surprised if it was her, because she's got Group 1 form. There was only a length. There was a length and a half, but I do think Meditate had the run of the race from the front, and I don't think it'll be the same this time. All Tahiyra will want is someone to go out in front, her to not get boxed in, and she's got an absolute burner of a turn of foot. So all she'll need is that gap. But like I said, you just don't want Chris Hayes being too confident. Whether you're on at 6 to 4 or 4 to 7, like you just don't want him being too confident, like almost too cocky. But I would expect that to be the forecast. I would have thought Tahiyra and Meditate. Queen for You should have won last time out in what I think will be work out to be a very heavy littered depth race with Silver Lady and Sounds of Heaven that won it, and Stormy Sea, who was the clock watcher's horse, but 8 to 1 into 11 to 4 ran no race. I do think Queen for You is to be respected, but as I said the other day, like, it's not a personal thing, but the jockey booking of Robert Havlin over, say, the likes, because Frankie's not got a ride in this, like that doesn't fill me with massive confidence, especially as I didn't think Robert Havlin gave it a great ride last time out. Sounds of Heaven is in here for Jessica Harrington, and I mean, I wouldn't put anyone off having her finishing ahead of Queen for You again, but at the same time you're taking on the Gosden juggernaut, and as I always say, Gosden and O'Brien know their fillies. So for me, Tahiyra I'd expect to win, and if it wasn't, it would be Meditate. So that I may just do, well, I have backed Tahiyra at 6 to 4, and I'll probably do a forecast Tahiyra to beat Meditate. I just want to go back on something quickly, just while obviously I've just mentioned Tahiyra and Little Big Bear, both short prices. Like, I see a lot of conversation throughout the week on people talking about short prices, like, oh well, all the favourites are losing, or all the decent prices, because you're not just seeing people, like, as in, you're not seeing any big columns or anything get like the 12 to 1 shots in. It's really like left field selections that are winning, but that doesn't correlate to further down the line. So like, people are saying, oh well, look at the 2-2-year-olds yesterday, both the favourites got turned over, so that means that Elite Status, yeah, that's a worry for him today. That's just not how it works. So does that mean if River Tiber had won in the morning, the first race, then Elite Status has got more chance in the afternoon? It just doesn't, there's not really any sort of correlation. And it's the same with betting all the way through. Like, just because 5 favourites win, say 5 favourites don't win yesterday, doesn't mean that on Thursday all the favourites are going to win the card. It doesn't mean all the favourites aren't going to win the card. It literally has zero impetus. So it's more just people's confidence in their selections and how they play them and pick them. Right, so I've picked 2 out here. The reason I wanted to get this video out is, I mean, it'll probably be even bigger prices on the day. No, sorry, I picked 3 in this race. So this is the Sandringham. So a few stats for the Sandringham. Sandringham, you want to be drawn either really high or really low. So basically, I think the stats, I haven't got them off the top of my head, I should do really, but I think it's, you want to be in either the top 4 or the bottom 4 on the rails, and I think there's, over the last like 10 run-ins, there's something like, out of the top 8 and the bottom 8, they've took like 8 out of the last 10 run-ins. But you look at the draws and you're looking at draw 21, 16, yeah, 1, 4, 5. So like 21, 16, and then 1, 4, 5. So obviously it completely depends on how many runners you've got. But even just looking at that, there's no correlation to high and low. It's how close you are to the rail. So like if you look at, and also it's difference in ground. So 2 years ago the ground was very soft, whereas last year it was firmer ground. Last year Heredia won it, and there were 28 runners, so yeah, that would put her within 8 of the rail. And then before that it was soft ground, so I don't count that because it's going to be firm ground. And then before it was draws 1, 4 and 5. So I think you just want to be drawn fairly wide because they're going to come up with the thing. But then again, I'm saying this, obviously Friday we've got another 2 days racing. They could end up just, all the pace could be up the middle, the ground, best ground could be up the middle. It's so difficult, which is why I'm just giving you early thoughts of horses on my shortlist. Because if they start moving in price and you do agree with what I've said, then at least then you could take it. So one I do really like, who's drawn low, so drawn 7, not the best draw, but at the same time I just like the way the horse did it, and I don't think the draw is going to really be an issue because of the way the horse can be ridden. Ben Curtis is an interesting jockey booking for Hugo Palmer. I've gone back through some of Hugo Palmer's jockey bookings, and Curtis rides for him loads, but he's also used so many different jockeys. So I'm not saying I was slightly surprised that he didn't choose someone who maybe was sat on the bench who didn't have a ride for this. But at the end of the day, you can't knock a jockey. He's more than capable, Ben Curtis is. This is just me being picky. At the end of the day, the reason why I've come on to Ben Curtis, the reason I've come on to Chelsea Green is because so far I had a couple of really standout performances. But last year finished 9 lengths behind Caernarfon, who's the one who's come in for money today. So may have won the race today. I think it's the Hampton Court today. May have won that race by the time you're watching this video this evening. But the real standout piece of form that I really liked was sent off. Only had one start this year, and was sent off. Apologies, let me just bring this up because I don't want to feel you're rubbish. Was at listed campaign last year, but on handicap debut, sent off 16-1 off a mark of 86. Was not slow out the gates, but was pedestrian out the gates. Left out the back, just plodded along, and given plenty to do. Began to get quite nudged, as in pushed along. That could have been down to fitness, could have been down to horse, could have been down to the front of the race, but you read the analysis and it does sound like they went quick up front. So this has got two ways of looking at it. One could say the race fell into her lap, the other could say that she's clearly a decent horse. For me, I'm somewhere in between, and the fact is that she was out the back and they didn't start coming back to her, but she was getting pushed along, and then she just found a gear and a gear and a gear, and she just went from last to first like that. And she just continues. It wasn't like he suddenly just really started pushing and got hard at it. It was just the fact that he just continued the same nudging along to stay with the pace. He just went through. And of course, you can look at it two ways. You can look at the fact that they fell in a heap because they went too fast, or you can look at the fact that they have gone too fast, so she struggled to keep up. But once she got going, she's clearly got plenty of gears. And the two things that stood out for me is, one, that was only a 1, 2, 3, 4, but that was only a fifth start. So the improvement, you've got stacks that you could improve. But the biggest thing for me was to go last to first at Newmarket. Anyone knows how stiff how much stamina that takes in that finish. To go last to first in any handicap at Newmarket, and obviously Newmarket handicaps are the top level, but she's only been put up £3. And that's the biggest thing for me, was that easily to go last first in it. But because she only won it by a length, I've looked through the form and it's a bit like many of these, where, that's half decent, that's okay. So I just think the horse still looks and remains like it could still be well handicapped off only £3 higher. And this race, it's over the same trip, so she doesn't want to be getting outpaced early on. But the thing is, obviously, I don't know Hugo Palmer, but maybe she was going to need that run. And if obviously this would have been the peak of her season, and if that is the case, and if she can stay with them a little bit more in the early stages, and then use that turn of foot, if she can produce that same turn of foot, then I just think she's going to be passing horses. And obviously, I say a lot of the time I go win bet, but she's currently 20-1, so to go each way, it makes sense to me, because I think, providing she doesn't get hugely outpaced at the start, which she shouldn't, and Ben Curtis can find a few gaps, then she's going to be passing horses when plenty are already beaten. And it's a massive field, but you'll be getting each way 6 or 7 places, something like that. So 20-1, she's a fair play for me. And the other one, the other one is Coppice. So Coppice, anyone who's followed the Discord group will know the pain that I had with Coppice, because I thought this could be a 1,000 Guineas horse at the start of the year. Looked very impressive last year. John Gosden. Frankie's taking the ride, which is obviously a positive. Many have said that it's a negative because, well, the reason it's a negative is because a lot of Frankie's rides are going to be well backed. So you'll know your luck. I think I got about 7 to 1. I don't know what price it is at the moment. I can't see. But I did look last night and it was still 6 to 1. But you'll know your fate of the money wise, because if you wait till the day, it could be 5 to 1, but then come the off, it could be 9 to 1 when the market recorrects. Because as I said, it doesn't matter that Frankie Dettori's on it. In the morning, it'll be the bookmakers just trying to get everyone before the best odds. But once the real punters come in on the Betfair Exchange, they will push these prices out, as we've seen with Saga the other day. Went from about 3 to 1 out to 9 to 1 before the off. But I like Coppice. Coppice has got a nice profile for this race. It's comes here, absolutely bombed when it was running for a prep in the Neil Gwynn, which was sent off favourite, if I remember rightly. Yeah, 2 to 1 favourite. And you were expecting her to take that. She was going to be a 1,000 Guineas horse. Just didn't take it at all. Those, whether it's fitness, form, anything, it didn't really matter. She just wasn't at that level. She didn't run. She's ran to a 95 RPR on debut and then ran £14 below that at Newmarket. Either way, they were patient with her. Sent her to Newcastle. Nice little confidence booster. Sent off 4 to 9. Not asked many questions. Bolted up easily under Rob Havlin. Comes here on a mark of 97, and it's one of those where the difference between those two horses I just mentioned, this one obviously is quite obviously a lot more. You can see the mark rather than trying to hide anything. But at the same time, this could be, if I thought it was a 1,000 Guineas horse, you'd like to hope that she could be a group horse in here. Drawn 25, which is more than fair with regard to obviously me saying you want to be drawn really high or really low. And yeah, there's not too many negatives for her. I do respect Jackie O, who's got a very similar profile to Coppice, and they're a very similar price. And it's Ryan Moore and O'Brien against Gosden and Frankie Dettori. And I did have a good look at her because she's ran second behind Village Voice, who I think's got a great outsider chance behind Ala Sifa today. She's 20 to 1 now for Jessica Harrington. And if she goes well today, then it's going to promote Jackie O's chances tomorrow because of the fact that she finished second behind her. And then she then went into the Curragh for the 1,000 Guineas behind Tahiyra, and she was running a great race on the outside, and she only finished 5 lengths beaten. So that's group level form. She carries a little bit more weight than Coppice, but that's because she's achieved like £5 more. But the thing is with these is, especially the group performers in a handicap, is that you don't know how much they left behind. So it's easy for O'Brien to have Jackie O. Okay, clearly not a Group 1, as in an early season Group 1 horse. Let's ease off her a bit, put her in this race. Yep, finishes 5th, perfect, gets a handicap mark. Same with Coppice. Okay, not a Group 1 horse, put her in the handicap. They might think that they're a Group 1 horse further down the line, but that wasn't the day. And then they come here and they achieve £10-20 more than what their mark is. So respected, but yeah, Coppice for me. And then one I do really like, this is really strange, and obviously maybe it's just Ed Dunlop's got a good record in this race, or mainly in his early years, but there's a horse that stands out with a really strange profile. So you have to bear with me 2 seconds. Currently priced at 40 to 1, so I'd imagine this would be like any price on the exchange, like 70 or 80 to 1, and it may just be an absolute no-hoper. But last year, trained for Harry Dunlop, and some of this form, like we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4 wins on the bounce, and the 4th win on the bounce was beating Novakai. So we know Novakai's a top level horse, having finished second behind Commissioning, and obviously finished second behind Soul Sister in the Musadora. So that's top level form. This is this is Polly Pot of Ed Dunlop's, and then she finished the season finishing 4th. Novakai did improve past her, but she's still only finishing. At one stage, to be fair, she was in front. She's a front runner. She was out in front, and then for the Commissioning ride, she wasn't in front. She was held up, but as she was coming through, she came down the outside and looked like she was going for a winning run, and she just petered out of it. She finished 4th, and that's a more than acceptable run on that occasion. The interesting thing is went to Ben Paulin and ran 2 no races, 18th of 20 in the 1,000 Guineas, and then was a bit more lifelike when finishing 7th of 8th behind Warm Heart and Blue Stocking over at Newbury. The thing with that run is the second run there. So the 1,000 Guineas, she literally ran no race, RPR of 27. But the 1,000 Guineas run looked a lot more one of those sneaky rides out the back. And 85 RPR, which is only £12 off her career best. I don't understand why she went from Harry Dunlop to Ben Paulin, but now, just before this run, she's now gone from Ben Paulin back to Ed Dunlop. Like, Ben Paulin doesn't even have flat runners generally. So now gone back to Ed Dunlop, so back to Ed Dunlop for this race. But obviously, because of those poor runs, is now handicap marked off a mark of 100. So has been dropped £6 for that. Obviously, she was only campaigned at group level anyway so far, so this will be handicap debut. Let me just double check that. I don't want to. Oh no, sorry, she has won handicaps in the past. Yeah, she won handicap mark off 70, so she is running £30 higher, but obviously she's achieving RPRs of that level. I just think she's got Billy the Kid, so Billy Lucknane is in the saddle, £3, and as I said about plum draws, really high, really low, this is a big field, so I think it's 32 runners maybe. No, 31 runners. She's drawn 31 of 31. So there's nothing to say if Billy can break out well. She will probably be held up and come through the places. I just think she's got an outsider squeak. And at 40-50 to 1, she'll probably be like 100.0 on the Betfair Exchange tomorrow. And obviously Billy taking off 3, so that means she runs off a 97, which is obviously much higher than what she's done in the past. But she's got RPRs that will put her in with the likes. So just put it in context. So Coppice best RPR so far is 97, same as Polly Potts. Polly Pot does have to give £3, but take Billy's claim. That would put him on the same as what Coppice has run off. Obviously, you'd expect Coppice to have absolute leaps and bounds more of improvement than what Polly Pot would. But Polly Pot, I don't think, had finished improving. So if she runs a little bit more to her mark, and obviously the difference is about 10 times the price. So in summary, I've gone around about the house with that. Really like Chelsea Green, currently 20 to 1. You can get that each way. I like Coppice at 6 or 7 to 1. And Polly Pot is worth, like, I don't want to say how much, because obviously if you depend on your stake, but a very, very tiny bet, because you could get a big price on the exchanges. I haven't got into the King Edward Stakes yet. That's mainly because I don't know how to play it. King of Steel, if they ran to their Derby mark, would be an absolute certainty here, clearly. But there is so much opportunity for this horse to bounce to the moon and back. And what I mean by that is, and I think a lot of punters will just literally turn up and whack on this, because you look at the symbol figures and he hammered all the rest of these. He was so impressive in the Derby, and arguably if you take out August Road in, he's absolutely hacked up in the Derby. Like, he was so good. And obviously 5.5 lengths back to White Birch in third. He was so impressive. The problem was that was his first run of the season. First run on good firm ground when he'd only raced on soft and heavy, and he's a massive horse. So all of those for me would be, they're coming here very quickly. Not very quickly, but 3 weeks later. So my worry obviously all round would be, and obviously this is only his second start for Roger Varian. My worry here would be, are the Ammo Racing colours trying to get a Royal Ascot winner and have a good day out, rather than thinking about the horses long term? I mean, that's obviously, I don't know. I'm not here to say that is the case. What I am saying is, they've said, Varian has said all week, this horse has come out and is absolutely bouncing. So they come out and they're ready to go. And some horses 3 weeks later, like King of Steel, will come out and absolutely run again, career best, like 1-2-2, run again to that sort of level. However, others won't. Especially, there's horses, so many different ways you can put this. Second time on fast ground. Second time out, like as in we're talking, it wasn't a short layoff as well. Let me just get the timer. It was 224 days off, and then to go into a Group 1 and run such a monster race. It just concerns me. But the problem is, I look for the rest of the race and I'm just like, Jesus, who am I picking instead if I don't pick King of Steel? I couldn't fancy Relentless Voyager. Dubai Mile is interesting, but I just thought it was like a meh run in the Epsom ground, and I think that his best form when beating Arrest was on heavy ground, which goes the same for Arrest. Both of those two, their best form, both came on heavy ground. So then that takes you to Continuous, and you think Continuous looked steady and progressive in the Dante, finishing third, very inexperienced on his first start out this season. You expected him to come on for the run and then obviously go well out in France, but ran no race, but wasn't, obviously considering he was only sent off 5 to 1, was beaten 15 lengths out in France. But I could easily see that horse bouncing back, because as I said with O'Brien, is they're not afraid. Ryan Moore, a common view that you'll see with Ryan Moore away from Royal Ascot, because he just wants the second, third, fourth for the jockeys titles. But away from Royal Ascot, if Ryan Moore, if the horse is not going to win the race, he is more than happy to, the last 20% of the race, ease off, knowing that there's bigger days ahead. And because he's got big connections like Coolmore and stuff like that, they're more than happy for him to do that. So Continuous, I think that could be the play. I could end up going with Continuous, and obviously Artistic Star as well. Artistic Star was well beaten again in the Derby, looked impressive before. Not absolutely, but beat Torito quite well, and we've seen what Torito's been doing in handicap since. You could get a form boost there if Torito was to win today in the big handicap. And Arrest, I don't know what to make of Arrest. Has won on good ground, but I just think the horse wants soft or heavy. And I find it strange that they've decided to run here. It ran absolutely no race. It's had so many different issues in the Derby. Despite being sent off favourite, I think most people didn't think he was going to run that. He was sweating. He went off in front. He was very prominent. He didn't enjoy the track. He was unbalanced. Lost a shoe. There's so many reasons, obviously, that you could say. But the thing is, like, obviously, when you're looking through the field and you look at Dubai Mile, if the rest had all those issues, like, why is Dubai Mile only just finishing ahead of him? And Artistic Star, there was only 2 lengths between Artistic Star. So it's a very tough race to assess, in all honesty. So if I was going to put it in simple terms, because obviously I have just gone round about the houses, which I tend to do sometimes when offering this content, is King of Steel by far the one to beat. And if you want to back him, fire away. But it's just, like, I don't know whether it's a price thing. Like, it's very difficult to find things that will beat him. It's the bounce. That's my only main negative, but it's a massive one. I could easily see him coming around there, swinging, pushes the button, and he just empties, and then comes back and wins a massive race in 2 months' time or whatever. But at the same time, I could see him flying and absolutely bolting up, because he is better than these and what we've seen so far. Arrest, I don't know what to make of that currently. Continuous, I could see bouncing back. Artistic Star, more to come. And the Biomile and Relentless Voyager, not too sure for me. I will have obviously full selections, and if I am going to play one in that race. But again, here we go. I'm on to another big one. This is a guy who's literally had 2 winners in 2 days, and now he's looking for 50-1 shots when he can't even pick a 6-4 fav. Right, so step up next 40-1 / 50-1 / probably any price you want on the exchanges tomorrow. And that is George Bowie's Thundermore. And I really like this horse, like, as in, maybe I've just got it in my head and it's a foolish thought. This horse was campaigned at the highest level last year, ran here in the Norfolk Stakes, and a lot of his runs you see, and he did get a win under his belt, but then after that you look at his runs and he's got like 8th of 10, 5th of 8, 7th of 9, and the bottom line was he was running in amongst a lot of the best 2-year-olds, like the Rocket Rodneys, Wallbanks, the Riddler, all of those sort of horses, and he was, to an extent, he was regressive. I think the trainer continued to run him, but he just kept throwing his chance away. He was very coltish. He made errors in racing, and he didn't improve, to put it quite simply. He took keen holds in his race. Basically, he just didn't learn. It was like the student. Like, you look at his early days, he ran no race on debut, then he bounced back and achieved his career best. He achieved a 90 RPR. He then went to Royal Ascot in the Norfolk, where he finished 8th behind the Riddler, but before that he was fairly level with all of them, and then a career best at Goodwood behind Trillium, but he's only getting beaten 4 lengths. So the reason why I like this horse is a couple of reasons. The main one is he switched to George Bowie. So he switched to George Bowie from Kevin Ryan, and they've gelded him. George Bowie's already commented that when he first came there, he was very coltish. He was like a little bit of a Jack the Lad, and since being gelded, he has completely settled down. He's like a different horse. So that to me was very interesting. Follow up from that is obviously due to a lot of his exploits of getting beaten by most of the good 2-year-olds last year, his handicap mark is not massively high. He's sat on a handicap mark of 90. To put that into context, we're just going to go through, I'll grab someone. So, okay, right, Wallbank, he finished 4 lengths. He finished 2 1/4 lengths behind Wallbank in the Molecomb. Bearing in mind, a lot of his running, once he was done, they didn't push him hard. So Wallbank is running off 100. He's running off 90. So for 1.5 lengths, he's getting £10 from Wallbank. Put that into another context, I'll pick a different horse. So Rocket Rodney from the same race. Rocket Rodney finished 2 3/4 lengths ahead of him. Again, he's running off 90. Rocket Rodney's running off 99. So he's getting £9 for that rival. So that's £9 and £10 he's getting from those 2 rivals that, 1, are half the price. 2, he's obviously been gelded. 3, he's got cheek pieces applied. 4, he's got Billy the Kid, so he's got Billy Loughnane, so £3, which technically means that he's obviously getting £13 and £11 or whatever it was. Basically, he's getting a lot of weight from these horses that are in a lot shorter prices. The main thing you've got to hope at, though, is the fact that the switch to George Bowie, the cheek pieces and the gelding all do their work. But these are the sort of horses why you're looking at big prices. You've got to try, if you're looking at 50 to 1 shot, you want to try and find a way. They're not going to say 50 to 1, oh, 4 ones next to his name, this horse could be the next Frankel. You have to try and think outside the box. And I'm hoping that he's not drawn spectacularly well in 19, but it does give you the options to go either way. And I've got more than enough faith in Billy Loughnane. This is the trainer's first start for it. We know George Bowie targets handicaps, and this has been the plan for some time. So he is currently 40 to 1 on the each way, but again, he could be any price on the exchanges. I wouldn't put anyone off a Billy the Kid double, each way double, stupid, like 8 places or whatever. I think they're 240 to 1 shots. Yeah, probably they won't even place, but at the end of the day, if you put tiny stakes on it, you never know. Azure Angels on my shortlist for this, but the one I do like as well, up towards the top end of the market, currently priced at 16 to 1, for a jockey who, if I remember rightly, won this last year on Latin Lover. That's Hayley Turner. And the race I discussed earlier, the Sandringham, she's got a great record in. The bottom line with Hayley Turner is she's brilliant in these big field handicaps. She's got an eye for those spots, moving around, and she's very patient. And she comes here on David Simcock's Harry Brown. Harry Brown was very progressive on the all-weather last year, running over both 5 furlongs and 6 furlongs. But the trainer said from quite an early stage that even though he's winning over 6 furlongs, that 5 furlongs was going to be his trip. He came back this year. Well, I say he came back, he's running through the winter, but he had a bit of a break, and then he returned, sent off 6 to 1 in the Celebration Handicap at Goodwood. Hayley Turner rode that day, and that to me was like one of the Irish sneaky sort of rides. I don't think she was... Basically, if you go back and you watch it, she was travelling all over the field. And either I'm wrong, well, there's 2 ways of looking at it. One is the fact that he did not find a lot in the finish, but the other way was, I thought that once he got to the front, she was like, oh God, she was like, this handicap mark's going to skyrocket. And the others did, to be fair, the others around did find, and I think she was grateful that others found. And then she was like, they came alongside, and then she did like a manoeuvre, putting them in, got bumped 1 furlong out, lost her place, and then went backwards a bit on her final strides. Obviously, it's how you interpret it, but to me, all that meant was they got the race fitness in, they had their first run on grass, they went back to 5 furlongs that they've been training the horse for, and they ran on rattling fast ground. So for me, everything was a positive towards this sort of race. Comes here off 87. That's not a mark where the problem is with this is there's not a lot of statistics. You look at the past winners, drawn 11, 24 and 19, so straight away you'd be like, oh, double figures is the place to be. But the problem is there's only been 3 run-ins of this race. The other way of looking at it is 95, 82. The other way of looking at this, if you look at Latin Lover last year, Latin Lover won with an RPR of 95 off a mark off a weight of 8.2. Hayley Turner's going to be on 8.8, so £6 higher. That would mean that Harry Brown would need to improve £6 in order to feature in this sort of event. And I think that's more than capable. Again, if it does go to high draws, obviously I could be in a bit of trouble with that. Obviously Thunder Moore's in a much better position. But I just think Harry Brown's got a great chance under a jockey that I do like in Hayley Turner. I may look to add a third one in this race, but at the moment, the reason why I may look to add a third one in both those two, the 5 o'clock and the 6:10, is because although they're 50 to 1 shots, obviously you have to be realistic that they may not play any part. So I like to have 2 solids and then but at the same time, if you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the raffle. So just in summary of this race, Harry Brown on currently 16 to 1 under Hayley Turner, and and Thunder Moore currently 40 to 1 under Billy Loughnane, and I will look for another selection. So that's it for Royal Ascot, obviously Friday. I will give you a quick summary of all the selections. 2:30 the Albany, I'm not down on anything yet. Commonwealth Cup, Little Big Bear main selection, and Noble Style as my second bet. If you haven't, obviously, if you're coming in with no race and you don't want to be putting too many on, then obviously Little Big Bear will be my main selection. I haven't decided in the 340, 420. Laptop's decided to go into a meltdown, so I cannot see what the 420 is. If I remember rightly, I think the 420 is the Tahiyra race. Apologies, I don't know what's going on here. Racing Post is having a meltdown. Apologies, 2 seconds. But I believe it is the Tahiyra race, and if that is the case, then Tahiyra is the selection. Yeah, Coronation Stakes. So Tahiyra is the selection. Meditate to follow her home for the forecast. If there was an upset, I think it would come from Meditate. The Sandringham Coppice for Frankie Dettori. Polypot as a long each way outsider, but main 2 selections were Coppice and Chelsea Green. Coppice is currently around 6-1, Chelsea Green is 16-1, and Polypot is 40-1. But you probably get any price. Not sure on the King Edward yet on whether to back or go against King of Steel. And then the Hollyroodhouse Stakes, Harry Brown, who is 16-1 for Hayley Turner, and Thundermore, who is 40-1 under Billy Loughnane. So those are all of my selections for Friday. I don't know how we've got on Thursday. I mean, if I'm doing by the time I do the next video for Saturday tomorrow, it'll be pretty disappointing if I've not managed to find a winner. But it's just one of those things. You you win some, you lose some. You cannot win them all. But I hope you're enjoying Royal Ascot, especially the people that are there having a few beers. And just remember, it's Friday. You're coming into the weekend now. So now the racing may be a little bit trickier on the Saturday, but Friday, Saturday is the weekend. So enjoy. Right, I'll be back soon.